it was clear and obvious early on for Georgia, not quite in that Clemson game, but once you got about a month into Georgia's season, it was starting to become obvious that Georgia just didn't have superstar talent on offense. Maybe talent's not the right part, but they didn't have superstar players especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think that clearly Jalen Walker, Michael, like those guys are studs. I think Malachi Starks is a stud. There's a reason why some of these guys are gonna be first round picks. But one of Georgia's clearly biggest issues last season, because it is last season and now it's 2025. We're in 2025 now. It needs stars. I think that there's a handful of guys that can be superstars for Georgia this coming season. And if it wants to win a national championship again soon, it needs guys to step up and have an impact like Brock Bowers had, like Nakobe Dean had, like all sorts of these guys from Georgia from the last few seasons. Georgia needs stars to step up. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. I've got 3 names right now that I want to discuss, and if one comes to mind during this video, I'll bring it up as well. Let's just get started with Nate Fraser, right? This is a current topic because Trevor Etienne, as you probably know by now, if you haven't, I don't know if you're under a rock or not, but Etienne's going to the NFL draft. My quick analysis on that, I don't like to question players' decisions. I try really hard not to. I try not to question what Carson Beck is doing. I try not to question what this person's doing. I don't know if he's doing the best thing. That's just my perspective, and I think it really would have helped Georgia to have another experienced back in there. Well, Nate Fraser's going to have more touches now, and it's probably the Nate Fraser show. Georgia will have committee backfield. I think you'll see the Robinsons if healthy. You'll see Cash Jones. There's buzz about freshman 3-star, incoming 3-star, Bo Walker. There's buzz about him, Cedar Grove player. I don't know. All right, I've seen the clips. I think he's good, but I until I see what he does in spring and this fall camp, I'm not gonna have a real opinion on what Bo Walker's gonna do. Fraser is going to get more touches. I think he has electric capability. I only pump the brakes with Fraser for one thing, and it's, are we going to see him run past the entire defense? We didn't see that, right? We saw one really, really nice play against Clemson, and I think that he had a few that he could have really busted for long plays throughout the season. But that Clemson game where he had a really nice reception and he had about a 40-yard run, I believe it was a 40-yard run against the Tigers. That was a play where he showed burst, he showed suddenness, he showed the ability to run around people. And look, Sony Michel's and Nick Chubb's and DeAndre Swift's, guys like that don't grow on trees. And Georgia, fortunately, it seems like they were growing them on trees in Athens, right? That's kind of what it seemed like. Well, Nate Fraser, to me, is probably closer to those guys than people, maybe people do realize, but I think he might be a little closer to those guys than we think. It just has to be unlocked. The chances there and the opportunities there. Part of what will make you a superstar is, do you have opportunity to be a superstar? Are you going to have the capability of doing that? I think that with Fraser, they just need better from the run game. Better. It's got to be better. And part of that's on the offensive line. I don't know if anyone on the offensive line is going to be a star. If I was going to tab someone that I believe is definitely going to start this coming season as a star, I would probably tab Micah Morris as someone that I think is going to get looks in the NFL next year, right? Because he's been around for a while. So there's that, but it's got to be with Fraser. I think you need to see some of the other running backs, but with Fraser needs to break out for Georgia. Needs to. I think that Georgia just needs it. They need more consistency from the running game. They need more explosion. Part of that's on the line, but part of that's on the backs too. Okay, because I don't remember a season like this where there was only a handful of really explosive runs. Obviously, Georgia will consider, I think, a 12 to 13-yard run as an explosive run. I believe that's what Kirby said a couple of seasons back to the media. If not, it's about 15 to 17 yards. It's one of those two ranges. But where are the 40-yarders, the 50-yarders, the 30-yarders? They just didn't really happen. I can remember about 2 from Etienne, and I remember 1 from Fraser, and you got Anthony Evans on an end around, right? Georgia didn't have those explosive runs. Part of that's on the ball carrier. And so I want to see more out of Fraser. I want to see more of that explosive ability. I think he could be a superstar, though, for Georgia. Mark Schlabach, I think he was a former Georgia reporter, and he covers Georgia a lot. He covers other things for ESPN. He tabbed Nate Fraser, along with a lot of other guys like Nico Iamaleava and Arch Manning and Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame. He tabbed Fraser with guys like that as a potential Heisman candidate this coming season. I scoff at that a little bit, just to be quite frank with you. I don't think he'll have the touches. And I don't know if he's good enough for that. And it's just point blank. That's just the truth of it. But he certainly won't have the touches in order to do that unless Georgia is just completely relying on him. I don't think that's what it's going to be. But Fraser needs to break out for Georgia. I think that's fair to say. On one more on offense, but I want to go to defense because I want to flip it around a little bit. Another freshman from this past season, and this guy was a All-American, freshman All-American, KJ Bolden. What did I say a couple minutes ago? Opportunity is part of what is going to let these superstars shine. Well, he has a lot of opportunity. Why? Malachi Starks, out the door, going to the NFL draft. Dan Jackson, out the door, going to the NFL draft. 2 safety spots have opened up. KJ Bolden was already a starter. He's already someone that rotated in a lot and is on the field a lot. Now, people are going to look at him as Georgia's probably most talented defensive back, right? Pending Ellis Robinson, because on paper, he's the guy, right? In terms of this is an absolute stud. Well, Bolden got in there as a freshman. He made some plays. He has some cleaning up to do, as Georgia's entire defense did with tackling and with coverage, but the speed is there. I think the instincts are there. I think that the ball skills are there. You cannot, I grabbed this pen for no reason. You can't tell me that the ball skills aren't there with KJ Bolden. I know he only had the 1 interception, and people really look at that. And Georgia just didn't intercept the ball much this year. 8 in 14 games. It's not good enough. KJ Bolden caught 30 or 31 passes from Dylan Raiola his senior year at Buford, so about a year ago. 14 of them were touchdowns, right? And I've seen him catch the ball, and he can do it. So he has the ball skills, he has the speed, he has the instincts. He certainly has the love from Kirby, and you know how Kirby loves those big-time defensive back prospects. That does not exclude KJ Bolden. KJ Bolden, I'd argue, is someone he is, very fond of, and from what I can see. And they really, really went hard after him there at the end to flip him from Florida State to Georgia. That was a big deal. Auburn, as they normally do with a lot of big-time players, they made a late push and some offers, and Georgia won out in the end, and it really mattered. Why? He got on the field as a freshman, and they needed him out there. And now they're going to need him to be a star. Dan Jackson was a hell of a player for Georgia. Malachi Starks is a very talented player for Georgia. It will be noticeable with them being gone. To me, it was extremely noticeable that Kamari Lassiter and Tyke Smith and Javon Bullard were not on this past team. You'll see if those guys aren't ready in the secondary, you're going to see another drop-off in that play. It won't happen if you get superstar play out of KJ Bolden and you get elevated play out of the rest of the secondary. So that's my 2 cents on that. Third guy going back to offense, Zachariah Branch, right? I'm not going to talk about Gunnar Stockton yet, and I do think he's going to be the quarterback. No, I don't think it's 100% set in stone, but it's pretty set in stone from what I can tell. But I'm not going to tab Gunnar a superstar yet. I want to see it. And I know it's in there somewhere, but I want to see it. With Zachariah Branch, he definitely has superstar ability. Will he be a superstar? That's a real question. Not too much production. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we're talking about fewer than 500 yards in each of his first 2 seasons. And we're talking about one of those being with Caleb Williams, one of the best quarterback prospects of all time, who had stats that were out the door and something that Georgia quarterbacks don't do. Zachariah Branch did not get too much production, so I'm curious, will he just be kind of a gadget player for Georgia? I think that it's fair to ask that question, but he has superstar playmaking ability, that's clear. He's not the fastest player I've ever seen, but he's very, very fast, and he's shifty. And I think he's a more physical player that people would look at his height and weight. They'll see the 5'10", sub 200, and they'll see that and not think that he can break through tackles and be physical. I think he can certainly be physical. This is a legit return man, someone who is a threat to take it to the house when he has the ball. And Georgia needs a playmaker on the outside. They lacked that this past season, very much so, and it mattered. And Carson Beck, look, it wasn't all on Carson. Part of it was on Carson, but it wasn't all on Carson. And it's noticeable that he played worse when he didn't have a superstar around. And he had more than one before that, and he had practiced with several throughout the last few years in Athens. Now he'll be down in Miami. It's whatever. But Zachariah Branch, to me, you went out and you got him. You did what everyone was begging you to do. What all the Georgia fans were begging you to do, Kirby. Is Branch the guy? Part of that's on Branch, but part of that's on Kirby and the scouting department. Did they go out and actually get a guy that is going to improve this team? That's the question. I think those 3 guys can be superstars. Someone else did not come to mind. Obviously, I really like Chris Cole. He'll be rotating in. But Georgia needs more pass rush talent too. that to me is their biggest concern at the moment when you look ahead. But if Fraser, KJ Bolden, Zachariah Branch playing like superstars, like I think is in their wheelhouse, Georgia will be on the right track. Thanks for watching.